And let's head out to the phone lines. Ben Golliver, the Washington Post NBA writer, is joining us. Ben, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. We're trying to figure out what the Warriors are all about. I love getting a different perspective. Right now, they're sitting in sixth, I think, 5 or 6. I'll just ask you what we've been debating for weeks, and that is, can this team still win a championship?
Well, I understand you guys trying to figure the Warriors out. To me, it feels like the Warriors are trying to feel themselves out. You know, who are we? I saw them the last 3 games they played up in the Bay and then last night in Los Angeles, and it's like a different story every single night. You know, the one game, you know, Steph goes off, incredible closing push against the Milwaukee Bucks. Before that game, Steve Kerr is talking about how the Warriors play invisible defense. And then after the game, he's talking about how the Warriors, the championship Warriors are back, right? So it's like the story changes with these guys, you know, by the hour. And it was kind of a similar deal against the Clippers. Steph was absolutely phenomenal. 50 points, incredible efficiency. You know, he's got the LA building going absolutely nuts for him. It's a vintage Steph performance, but you look around him and there's just not enough there to support him. It kind of turned into a one-man show. And that's not how the Warriors won their titles. It's always been about the collective group, especially on the defensive end. And so I think there's questions with their defense. To me, also, their size without Wiggins. It's a very small group, especially a lot of the lineups they play with 3 guards, just have no hope of rebounding and of having enough defensive toughness. And so I think that contributes to the inconsistency. I'm not going to write them off, though. I think this is a team that still has a title shot, but they've got to get Wiggins back, and they've got to crank up the defensive intensity for sure.
Ben, how much of it, in your mind, is the basketball component and what you just laid out so eloquently versus just a lot of the other stuff that's been beneath the surface all year, whether it's Bob Myers not having a contract or the Draymond Poole punch or now Wiggins being away for what is obviously a personal issue that they don't want to really get into or disclose, and they're being respectful to him. There's always been something. Wiseman ends up getting traded mid-season, so they admit that didn't work. How much of it is the on the court versus the struggle of just everything else that's surrounded this team really since training camp started?
Well, for sure, the Draymond Green punch, I mean, that set kind of an ominous tone for a title defense, right? Like, you're coming in, you're feeling great. You know, Steph was so magical in Boston, and then to pull that series out, and then, you know, you get this, like, complete curveball and all these questions that you weren't expecting. So there's no running from that. At the same time, we've seen the Warriors get through an awful lot of drama in good seasons, too, right? I mean, I think, to me, it mostly comes back to what's happening on the court and the consistency factor there of needing to have their main guys kind of playing together. So I don't put too much stock into the other stuff, but you know, I've seen teams that hate each other in terms of how they act, and I don't view the Warriors as a team that hates each other, you know? I think they've got some effort issues on some nights, but it doesn't seem like they're working at cross principles.
Ben Golliver joining us on 95.7 The Game. He's the National Basketball Association writer for the Washington Post. Just piggybacking off the one thing you said about the Warriors, you're still giving them a shot. How many teams do you have? How many teams can win it this year?
Well, not as many as people think. You know, I saw some article recently that was like 13 teams can win it. I mean, give me a break. 13 teams cannot win the NBA title. That's never how it works. I think we should be talking about the Milwaukee Bucks as the favorite right now. You look at their defensive intensity. Nobody plays defense consistently in the NBA, basically at all anymore. It's been wild. We've seen a ramp up here since the All-Star break, but Milwaukee's defense has been phenomenal. They've got all defensive players at least 3 positions, Drew Holiday, Giannis, and Brook Lopez. And then their offense is coming along now that Chris Middleton is back. I mean, they're not running off these big win streaks by mistake. To me, they should be viewed as the title favorites. They might have won last year if Middleton had been healthy, and he's finally starting to get his groove back. Boston could win the title for sure. That's all I see in the Eastern Conference. You know, I know a lot of buzz around Philly. You know, I'll believe it when I see it with Joel Embiid and James Harden in the playoffs. In the Western Conference, I do think Denver could win it. You know, they get all the, you know, the old heads saying, come on, you got to prove it. Show us you can play defense. You know, Jokic, you know, it's just, you know, it's just sort of fun for the regular season, but it's not substantive. but he's playing his best basketball ever. They made the Western Conference Finals a couple years ago. Gordon's playing great for them. Jamal Murray's back in the mix. And I think if they get favorable matchups in the postseason, like if they can avoid, say, Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry at some point, like if it just breaks the right way for them, I could see them sneaking in. I think Phoenix has a shot with Durant healthy, but that's a gigantic question. And I think Golden State has a shot as well. So my group is 5 teams. I'm open to other nominations, but you see what happened in Memphis with their whole season getting derailed by the Ja Morant thing. And, the Clippers, they have been so up and down, maybe even more up and down than the Warriors, that I have a hard time talking myself into them, too. So my group is 5. What's your group?
Well, I'm just going to ask you about the Lakers and Clippers, so you're not putting those guys in there.
No. Hey, have we ever seen a team that goes on a 3-game winning streak like the Lakers, and all of a sudden they get crowned like they're going to be championship contenders when they're under 500 and have been inconsistent for 3 years in a row? Like, where is all this positive energy coming from? I mean, I understand the Russell Westbrook trade was a smart move for them at the deadline, and they've been getting some nice minutes from guys like Jared Vanderbilt, but how are you going to put your faith and trust in D'Angelo Russell, who's been completely inconsistent his entire career? He has a couple good nights. Everyone wants to race to crowning the Lakers. It makes no sense to me. LeBron James isn't even healthy. What's his ramp-up period going to be like? Very difficult to play playoff basketball on a messed-up foot. I look at all these questions. Anthony Davis still sitting on back-to-backs, even though they're in the middle of this really important playoff chase. They couldn't even beat the Houston Rockets last night. Why are they getting talked about as contenders? It makes no sense to me. And I think some of the frustration is because I probably watched them play about 40 times a year in person, and for the last 2 years, that's been a somewhat painful experience.
Well, and look, I think they are a tough out if LeBron is somehow back type of a team, and I think they're certainly a better team now after the moves that they made around the deadline than they were at the beginning of the year. That team at the beginning of the year was going to be 13th in the West, I think, if they had continued with that group. So, but I'm with you. I don't think they're a championship contender. And I look around, I think you nailed it. I think Milwaukee's the favorite, given the way they've been playing. I'm with you on Philly. I don't think Philly can win it. Denver, if everything breaks right. Phoenix, Durant, and with them gelling as it looked like they were starting to, and then Durant went down, and then maybe the Warriors as the one outlier. What's your assessment as to just why the Western Conference has played out the way that it has in terms of, 2 and 3 seeds this year would have been 6 and 7 seeds a year ago, and everybody all jumbled up? Because I view it as mediocre. Others view it as super competitive. How do you see that shaking out top to bottom?
Well, it's definitely been a weird year for the Western Conference. I think, first of all, you have a lot of big injury issues. You've got Zion, Kawhi Leonard missed a bunch of time, LeBron's missed time, Anthony Davis has missed time, Steph missed time. And I think it's just been a preponderance of injury issues in the Western Conference for stars compared to some of the Eastern Conference stars like Giannis and Tatum and Embiid, who have been much more consistently on the court. So I think that injuries explain a lot of the depressed win totals for a lot of these teams that we're describing. Look, if you have Steph Curry out there, you're going to win a certain number of games every single season, no matter what, right? If he misses 2 months, that number is going to look different. The Pelicans look like world beaters with Zion, and they can't beat anybody without Zion. And so I think that helps explain some of the muddled mess. I think that a lot of these teams, a month or two into the season, realized it was going to be pretty messy. And I think it might have changed their motivations about whether to go, to go crazy or not. I mean, if no one's out there running away with the conference, or you feel like you can beat Denver and they're the 1 seed, why, push your guys' minute totals up? Why not rest guys on back-to-backs and do those kinds of things to manage the season a little bit? It's sort of like if you ever watch a marathon, and people kind of wait to kick until the end. That's kind of what it's felt like in the Western Conference. But I still think it's a very strong, star-studded conference. I think that top to bottom, if you're going to look at the playoff bracket, if like the West 5 seed played the East 5 seed and so on, I think the West would win out, in most cases. And I think that, still, if you do a West All-Star team healthy versus East All-Star team healthy, the West is still stronger. So I don't like it when people frame it like, oh, the East has risen, the East is a better conference. I mean, there's 2 really good teams out there, Milwaukee and Boston, and even Boston's been pretty shaky lately. So, I still think the best basketball resides in the West.
Hey, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Great stuff. And enjoy the rest of the regular season and postseason.
Sounds great, guys. Take care.
All right. That's Ben Golliver, Washington Post.